San Antonio!
Let's go, San Antonio.
Welcome to All Things San Antonio podcast with your host, Brad Burns and
Ken Carter. And we're here today with special guest from Alamo Heights High School, Colin Lang.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. This is a big thing for me because, like we were talking a little bit before, and I've mentioned him a number of times on this podcast, is my son Zane, who got to take part in the Rocketry program and was an amazing experience, all the way to launching a missile out at White Sands, New Mexico, and continuing his engineering degree, and going up in the Vomit Comets and flying in the zero gravity planes, testing projects that he's working on, and it literally all started with you.
Oh, thank you.
And so most people in San Antonio, Brad doesn't know, Eric, our producer, he probably doesn't know much about it. The Rocketry is something very unique in high schools in general. You've built a program that is not only best in class for the state, for the country, but world class. Competes with a lot of college level programs that do the similar things. Mm-hmm. And it started from my understanding, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, but a little basement at Alamo Heights High School. So tell us your story. First, let's start with just a little bit of a background, because this is all things San Antonio. Were you born and raised in San Antonio?
No, actually, I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I married a wonderful young lady who was from Amarillo, Texas. And she lived in Edmonton for 3 years and said, oh, by the way, go Oilers. Big game tonight.
Big game tonight.
7, yeah. But anyhow, she spent 3 years in Edmonton and said, I don't like this cold anymore. We need to get out of here. And so we looked at where we would like to live in Texas, because you can take the girl out of Texas, but she's got to go back. So we came back and thought, okay, maybe Austin or maybe San Antonio. And we had friends here in San Antonio, so we came here and immediately got jobs. I was not a teacher. I share this story with all of my students. I never thought I would go to college. I never thought I was smart enough to go to college. And so that's why I share this with my students, because if I could do what I've done, anybody can. It just takes hard work. And so that was one of the biggest lessons that I've always imparted on my students. It's like, this country is still the place where dreams can be had. This is still the place where that can be done. But you have to work for it. Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to put in the hard work. And that's the secret to my success, and really the secret to this program is just, it's a lot of hard work. And you can attest, how
Absolutely.
much work your son put in.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hours.
It's a lot of hours, and you've attention to detail. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a bit of a perfectionist, and so he's well suited for that.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. But that's what brought me to San Antonio. It wasn't until I got here that my wife convinced me and gave me the confidence to actually go to school.
Okay.
And when I went back to school, I went to UTSA to become a coach.
Go Runners.
Yeah. And quickly discovered within a couple semesters that I was much smarter than I thought I was. I don't know where that was, because it certainly wasn't there in high school. I just showed up to eat my lunch when I was in high school. But I guess it was because I was older. I was almost 30 years old when I went back to school. And like I said, went back to become a coach. But then all these doors started opening up to these different things that I could study besides just coaching. And so I thought, well, let's follow that road. It's going to be hard, but let's do it, and I'm not afraid of hard work. So went in there and I actually went into pre-med, and I had 2 years of pre-med.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it was very, very, but it was great. It was amazing to know that I had that potential, But like I said, I was almost 30. So by the time I finished medical school and everything and started practicing, how old would I be and how in debt would I be? So the great thing about that, though, is now I could teach science. Mm. So when I got my degree, I got it in biology and kinesiology, and then I got a grant through NASA, and they paid for my master's degree, and I got that in integrated physics and chemistry. So then I got certifications to teach any subject in science. So I was teaching 8th grade science. For 6 years I did that. And
is that at Alamo Heights?
No, that was in actually that was Zachary Middle School in Northside Independent School District, and realized that my students needed hands-on. They needed that experience to be doing things, not just sitting in the classroom listening to me lecture. So I'd gone to a conference at Johnson Space Center and saw this rocket launcher that was compressed air actuated, and I looked at that and went, "That's cool, but I can make it bigger." And I can have more air. And instead of just launching one rocket, we launched two. Came home, my backyard, got in the mad scientist room and started building the thing, took it to the students, and just out of paper, just, rolled up paper tubes and stuff like that, we're launching these little rockets out on the field. And the kids were like, well, Mr. Lang, why are some of them going straight and some of them not? And I go, well, what do you think? And they go, how do you think we can make them go higher? Well, what do you think you should do? Well, what if we make it lighter, make it smaller? Let's try it. What if we put more air in it? I go, well, let's try that too. And so that's basically been my teaching style my entire life. Sometimes it drives kids crazy because they're like, well, you're not going to tell us? I go, no, that's not my job. My job is not to tell you the answer. Your job is to figure it out. Because
we were just talking about that on the last podcast. The one before that is like there's not enough critical thinking, just thinking being done in schools today.
Yeah. Well, if I step in and solve the problem for the student, I rob them of that opportunity. But if I keep on doing that, I'll rob them of the ability to do that. And so that's one of my biggest motivators. And after a while, the kids get it. First, they even hate me. I've had students actually tell me that, some very good students. They're like, Mr. Lang, first 2 years, I hated you. And I said, what do you think now? They go, well, you changed my life. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you. So it's gratifying, but you got to get through that, over that hill and get them to that point and to feel comfortable about doing that. And eventually they'll get to the point, it's like, Mr. Lang, forget it. I'll figure it out myself. I was like, yes. That's what I want to hear. Because their answers could be better than mine.
Yeah.
So the kids love that, the rocket launcher, and they're basically, discovering Newton's 3 laws, especially second law, F equals ma. And, more force means more acceleration, less mass, and more force, even more acceleration. So they started discovering that. So I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. So then I discovered a thing called TARC, Team Across America Rocketry Challenge. And so it's a competition where kiddos can loft eggs 750 feet into the air, bring them down unbroken in like 45 seconds. Took the kids into that competition, and they qualified to go to the national tournament, but unfortunately we didn't have the money to go. And it was about that point in time that I discovered something called Systems Go. And there was a gentleman out at Fredericksburg High School that started this program called Systems Go, because what he discovered, he was actually a marine biologist. So it seems weird that he would be a rocket guy. But what he discovered is this company was hiring engineers. Well, first of all, they were having a difficult time finding engineers. And then the engineers they were finding could not engineer. They had no idea what they were doing. All they did in school was just take exams. And so they were never expected to apply their knowledge. So he decided, I need to do something. And he and I are still close friends. I was just talking to him last week, and he started this program called Systems Go. And that's about the time I discovered it. And I was like, I went to go visit him. I went out to Fredericksburg, and I followed him around. I was like, oh my God, these kids are so smart. And I go, this is what I have to do. And so that's when I interviewed with Alamo Heights. And I walked in and sat down with Dr. Foster, who was the principal at the time, and assistant principal, and Mr. Collins, who was the department coordinator for science department. And I basically kind of hijacked the interview. I just kind of brought in my rocket stuff with me, and I'm showing them, I'm showing the launches, I'm showing the rockets, I'm showing them pictures. And they're all kind of looking at each other going, we don't know what to do with this guy, but we kind of want him on campus. And so they didn't have a science position actually available. So they offered me a position in what they call credit recovery, which is a classroom where kiddos who have failed classes and failed to get the credit for it, or they are trying to get ahead and graduate early, will go in there and work. Well, I worked with at-risk kids for the first 7 years of my career, so it was perfect. I walked, I said, they offered me, and I said, yeah, I'll take it. They go, what? Really?
That don't happen much.
Yeah.
Jennifer's there right now.
Yeah, they're like, you're kind of overqualified for this. And I said, it's okay, because this is the place I need to be. I just knew right away when I got there that this was the fertile ground to really grow this program. So I went to Dr. Foster and said, this is what I want to do. And she said, well, how much is it going to cost? And I said, don't worry about it. I'll find the money. So a gift, but also a curse, because I did not realize at that point in time how much the program was going to grow and how much money was going to be needed to do it. Just our senior rocket alone cost about $20,000. Wow. So this is a real deal. This is like he said, it's a missile.
It's 22. The one Zane launched was 22 feet, and when each piece of it has its own kind of person in charge. So you may have 22 kids working on that 22-foot rocket, and they each have something different. Like for Zane's, his was the propulsion section at the time. And so,
which actually is broken down into other components. But so she went, well, absolutely, go right on ahead. And so I didn't have a classroom at that point in time. I was literally had a cart that I was going from room to room with, right? So the first year there, it was kind of like a club after school. The second year, I got a junior
what
class.
year was this?
Oh, gosh, that was 20 years ago now. No, hold on. 17 years ago. 17 years ago.
So 2007.
Yeah. Yeah, 2007, 2008 would be the year.
Okay.
And so they gave me 17 kiddos, and believe it or not, those kiddos at the end of the year, they got a coffee mug that they all signed, and I drink out of that coffee mug even to this day. This morning I was drinking out of that coffee mug. But that rocket that we built that year, I found the money for it and went through the curriculum with them, and they did 4 generations of rockets, starting off with little ones and then culminating in a rocket that would take a 1-pound payload, scientific payload, to 1 mile in altitude and then bring it back down safely. That rocket was called the Valkyrie. And we successfully launched the rocket. Didn't make a mile, but it was still successful. And that's the thing that I try to express to my parents and others, that it's not a competition. We're not competing against each other. What we're doing is competing against the rest of the world by creating the next generation of innovators. And you can relate because your son has gone on and he's doing great things because of it.
And he talked about it even back then. It's like everything from y'all's program, like the stuff that's going to be happening the next year, year 18, is knowledge that the kids have developed year after year after year after year. And and I brag about Zane all the time, but like that year, his propulsion system was a little bit experimental, the way that he had the shower kind of thing and had different holes and stuff. I can't explain and everything.
That was the nitrous oxide injection system.
And it was supposed to. It should have gone really, really high. It went a long way though. That was someone. It took off and everything. But
we say that every year that they should have gone much higher.
But at the same time, it's like even with I think that year they had a little bit of a problem with the recovery system prematurely opened or something.
Recovery is the most difficult part of the entire rocket, and this year we finally had a recovery system actually open. And that's the first time that's ever occurred.
And that goes to what I was like. Every year they're taking what happened the year before and adjusting it a little bit and everything, doing that critical thinking and everything, and saying how can we improve this and how can we make it go a little bit. So
unfortunately, sometimes kids get in their head that they need to reinvent the wheel and change everything.
Nice,
And it's like, hold up, time out. We've got something that works here. Don't keep on trying to fix it till it's broke. But so that was, that year they were juniors, and then they moved up to the senior level the next year, which we call the Oberth level, after Hermann Oberth, the German father of rocketry. And that rocket was to basically break the sound barrier, reach Mach 1, but stay under 13,000 feet. So we had 2 years of that were very successful. The kids were getting more and more kids in. The next year, I had double the amount of students at this point in time because it just kind of started taking off. And Brett out at Fredericksburg invited me to go to the top level of the program, which is what we call the Goddard level, after Robert Goddard, the American father of rocketry. And that rocket, at that point in time, was designed to take a 35-pound payload, again, a scientific payload, to an altitude of 100,000 feet. Now, to put this in perspective, the rocket that I talked about previously, the Oberth, transonic to 13,000 feet, that's what my juniors do. And that is what the seniors in college do. So my students in high school are actually doing a more sophisticated vehicle than the colleges were doing at that point in time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's amazing.
Yeah. I'm like geeking out because when I was a kid, my brother was kind of into the rocket stuff, so I would get the little model ones from Hobby Lobby with the little motors and the little...
Yep.
So which is so
really
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. But it's kind of like just assembling and pushing a button, right? And so I get so many parents that would come in, especially dads, right? And they'll come in, they'll go, I used to build Estes rockets when I was a kid too. And you try to explain to them what we're doing, and they just don't get it. So I just go, come into the shop and take a look.
Yeah.
So they walk in and they see that 20-foot long, 650-pound missile, and they're like, oh, okay, that's actually a rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing with glorified bottle rockets, to be fair, but that's how I'm like geeking out. I was like, oh man, this stuff's so cool.
Now, there's much to be learned from that too. There is.
About the same time I was teaching, one of my best friends were teaching ourselves to weld.
Mm-hmm.
Start off with the acetylene notch in and got to a little stick welder and stuff. And we made a barbecue pit, which is great and everything. Mm-hmm. And then Zane comes home. He's like, "Oh yeah, I was using the CNC machine doing it." And I'm like, "What?" What I was doing is not even come close to what he's working on and stuff. Like the technology that y'all are able to like have access to is crazy.
We've been blessed. I mean, it's just that's one of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks is just kind of reminiscing and looking back at all the people who I've got to meet. And just like Dr. Foster used to say, I had a guardian angel looking out for me. And sometimes I think she's right, because just the right people would show up at the right time to give us and to help us and to keep us moving forward. And it's just been unbelievable when you look backwards on it. But we had, I basically had a Dremel and some screwdrivers to begin with, and an X-Acto knife. And then I got the opportunity to get a drill press. And then right about that point in time is when we started that Goddard rocket, which we had no tools to build something like that. It's all made out of aircraft, space age aluminum. And so right at that point in time, I met a man by the name of Eddie O'Connor, who was a master machinist. And I believe we built your son's rocket in his shop in his backyard. Yeah, all summer long, 100+ degree weather, sweating in that shop. I mean, they earned it. I mean, they really did. But Mr. O'Connor was patient. He thinks the same way I do. It's like, well, what would you do? What tool do you think you should use in the shop to build that? And I was like, yes, keep doing that.
Tens of thousands, $100,000 worth of equipment.
Oh, yeah.
Just giving access out of the kindness of his heart.
And allowing the students to get in there and actually work on it. Not him doing it, but him teaching them and teaching me. And
that's the thing is not to. I'm sorry, but it's a great lesson in that. You didn't have the funds. You didn't have You didn't know what you were going to do. You just, we're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And it's just put it out there, put it in the universe, and it's going to happen.
I'm not very good at no. I'm not good at that. That word doesn't work for me very well. And so when I usually just don't even ask, I just go ahead and do it, and just keep pushing it forward. And then, fortunately, Alamo Heights saw the not the necessity, but also the value and what it was doing for the kids, and the fact that almost 100% of them every single year go to engineering school. Almost, and you think about that statistic.
And tell them the number, because we're talking about 17 at the beginning, and you said doubled, but now
we went up to 150 students and beyond that at times, and it kind of ebbs and flows. But 150, 160 were probably the highest number of kiddos we had.
And you have a graduating class of about 350 to 400.
Yeah.
And so of those, are probably 35, 40 of them are seniors and going to STEM schools.
Yeah.
And like I said, Zane had the opportunity to go to UT School of Engineering right out of high school and everything. So these are opportunities that don't come around to a lot of students.
It looks pretty impressive on an application when you put in that you've built a rocket capable of going to 100,000 feet. Matter of fact, I've had many of my students return, and they're out in the working world now. They're working in industry, and they'll come back and go, "Yeah, I was in an interview, and the guy that was interviewing me didn't even want to know what I did in college or what my work experience was. He just wanted to talk about the rocket I built in high school." Which is, it sets them apart. It really does.
I'm sure because Zane ended up at UTSA, and I'm sure that it had a huge influence on his internship at Southwest Research, which is where he's at now, and it's building stuff he's working on a probe, one of the projects that it's going to go into the rings of Saturn.
Oh my God. How cool is that?
And that's what I don't know if he told you about the pellet gun thing that he was working on. So that's what he got to take this. And I think I mentioned it was basically he designed a BB gun to go through a vacuum to hit dust particulates and measure their dispersion rate. And part of it was to know how it would work in zero gravity. So he took that to Canada, to your home country, and they were doing the vomit comet, and so they would test it. And since he didn't have any ill feelings on the first time, he got to go back the second trip and do it again.
Okay.
And so he's finished with that project and writing up the paper and stuff and everything. But that paper, he said, most likely will use to do another research to where they actually take a similar product, that mechanism that he built, and take it to the moon and measure magnetism, how it affects the particle, because it's all about landing on different planets, right? Now, you're taking rockets to the moon, and Elon wants to take a rocket to Mars and everything. They need to know what the dust is going to do, right? So that's what he's working on. After learning, it's like...
It blows my mind to hear what the kiddos that leave and they go on and they're doing. It's like one of his classmates who was incidentally wanting to quit school when he was a sophomore is now a manager at Johnson Space Center, and he's working with the Japanese team there. He was just over in Japan learning Japanese there. It's just it's incredible to see what these kiddos are, and that's the thing that
from a guy that didn't think he should go to college.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. I look at and. I think, in the U.S., the rest of the world talks about the U.S. and the kids falling further and behind, and, they're not to par with everybody else. And I don't think it's because our kids are dumb. I don't think it's because I don't believe that even at all. I think they're not given the opportunities. And when given the opportunities like this, they shine. They just blow up. I mean, it is so much fun to watch them and see what they do with their ideas and with their designs and everything. It's been an amazing journey.
What I love about it is you give them the opportunity to fail.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because that's actually one of our biggest tenets is that success through failure.
Yeah.
And it's like I tell my students, I want you to fail. I want you to fail often. I want you to fail early. And they're like, what kind of teacher are you?
First attempt I learned.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you learn. I actually set them up for failure during the first couple years with different projects we do. I set them up so they do not work at all, and so then they have to figure out why, because that's the question right there. Why? Like you were saying, you got that rocket from, say, Hobby Lobby, and you stick a motor in it and stick all the things on it and light it up, and it goes straight up, and you go, that was cool. But when you light it and it does this and flies all over the place and crashes, and then another one goes straight up, and you're like, okay, what's the difference between those two, right? When you're asking that why, then you start to learn. And so that's why failure is important. It's very important. It's the
most important thing, in my opinion.
Well, that's, and even to take it on a grander scale, Elon talks about it a lot, like with his the Starship. He just had the most recent one, which he had a successful soft landing in the ocean. Yeah. But it's every step it's a little bit closer. It's a little bit closer, and it's crazy what he's been able to do. And it's that similar thing. It's like he doesn't take no. He just I read the biography that Walter Isaacson wrote about him and everything, and it's funny. It's like one of the things that when building it, it's all about cost cutting and Boeing, all these, it's all cost plus kind of like contracts, and they're trying to get it for the cheapest, and there'd be a valve that it cost $2,000, but the same valve that you can get at O'Reilly's Auto Parts shop for $3 works. And he's like, the only rule that we won't break is laws of physics. If it doesn't break the laws of physics, I don't care what regulation, what government thing. It's like as long as it doesn't break the laws of physics, we're going in that direction. Whatever's the most efficient and best way to do it. Yeah. And it's produce results.
Yep. And I hear people say that oh my God, he failed. No, he didn't. He learned. And people also forget about like the early days of NASA, before it wasn't even NASA. Most of the rockets blew up. The Vanguard that was supposed to take our satellite into space and compete with Russia never got off the launch pad. It just crashed and burned right there. So most of our rockets launched. They crashed or they blew up. So then you think, okay, we're going to put an astronaut on that. So that first 7 group, wow, they had some courage, because most of them failed. And now you're going to put me on top of one.
That's a different kind of, and that's why they go with test pilots.
I'll tell you, those folks, man, they've got a lot of courage. They got a lot of courage. Either that or they're crazy. Maybe a little of both.
So what's next for Alamo Heights Rocketry program?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I'm actually retiring this year.
And I thought you were actually already retired. Like I knew that it was coming.
Yeah. This was actually my last official year with the school. We just got back from White Sands last week. We went out and we had a great rocket. It was beautiful. It was probably the lightest rocket that we've ever had, and the weather was perfect. Our fill system worked perfectly for the first time. You may remember your son's rocket only got about maybe 2/3 full of nitrous oxide. We got
that's right, because they were on the launch pad trying to get it for a long time, getting it filled.
Ours filled in record time. Matter of fact, it sat on the launch pad fully full of fuel for 25 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we were that far ahead of schedule in terms of, the fill and fire on it, right? So we had no holds on the countdown. The countdown progressed all the way through to, T-minus 2 minutes and counting, all the way to 0. And ignition was perfect. Injection of the nitrous oxide system was perfect. The rocket left off. I mean, it was beautiful. Came off that launch pad like it was bat out of hell, and perfectly stable, going straight up. And we're looking at the telemetry. It's like 1,000 feet, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. Oh, 5,000, 4,000. It's coming back down. It's like, what happened? And so we know exactly what went wrong because the parachute deployed partially and brought it down soft enough that we could now actually retrieve it. And we looked at it, and just above where the combustion takes place, right underneath the nitrous oxide tank, it melted through there. We got a burn through. And so the aft section of the rocket came off, and the rest of the rocket continued up. Well, we know exactly why that happened since we got to look at it. We know exactly how to fix it. Everything is ready to go for next year. So I'll be back helping out whenever. It's kind of hard for me. This has been my baby for 20 years now. And so for me to just step away completely, it's impossible. And for the new teacher who's taking over for me to learn what I've learned in 20 years in 1 year, difficult to do.
Yeah.
So I'll still be back, and I'm hoping to go back with them next year because I want to see that rocket go up. But, I talk about the rocket a lot, but, what I want to impress upon everybody is that it's the final value product of this program is not the rocket. It's sexy. It looks cool. I mean, it's very impressive, but the final valuable product are the students.
Yes.
And what they can do when they leave the program. And, they walk into college. I come back every year and they tell me this. They walk into college, and the first couple years of college, it's like a piece of cake. They already know everything that they're going to be caught in the first 2 years for the most part. And so they come back and I said, I told you that would happen. And, how you handle that now is up to you. But, you've now got a head start ahead of everybody else. And people always ask them, how do you know? And I've had actually professors tell my students when they tell them about their rocket in high school, they're like, you're lying. I say, well, no, I'm not. It's like high school students can't do that. It's like, yeah, we can. Here's pictures. They're like, oh my God.
The pictures, it really is crazy. They take them each year in front of the school, in front of the big mule, and it's like, imagine 16 to 18 kids lined up shoulder to shoulder, and the rocket's a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
It's like it's forever long, and it's crazy. Zane's, theirs was supposed to go to 95,000 feet.
That's what their design said. All the math.
And then it's so crazy because you go out there where they literally are launching satellite, everything. Like even foreign governments are coming in. And I don't know if you've heard this part of the story though. So, and they shut down the whole thing, no fly zone. And when it has launched that year, they go, it's 1 mile, 2 mile, or 1,000 feet, 2,000, or they're counting it up, and all of a sudden they go, where'd it go? And because the recovery system, and it went 5 miles, it went up like 3 or 4 miles, and then went 5 miles or 6 miles due west, and then of the 22 feet, only 6 feet was still outside of the earth. Like it had buried itself that far.
It buried itself in the ground, yeah.
And then
when it hit,
Zane's uncle he's still Special Forces group. He's in the military, and he does trainings and stuff. They do it out there at White Sands.
Yeah.
And we were telling him, he goes, one day a Special Forces group will come upon it, and then stop and say bogey because it's not on their little map, and then they'll act like it's a bogey missile and stuff like that, and they'll map it out, and like it'll become part of a military training exercise now.
Yeah, they'll think of it as unexploded ordnance because they don't know what it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's one of the things we're so blessed too about is that the military hosts us at White Sands Missile Testing Range to launch these things, and it's just unbelievable because
everybody volunteers to be there.
Oh, as a matter of fact, this week that we were there was Father's Day. And so they were actually off. But what they did, all the folks that worked on our mission, is they worked earlier in the week on their days off so they could have the weekend off, even though it was Father's Day, to spend with our students.
So cool.
And
it's crazy.
Oh, it's just amazing, to have that kind of support because the amount of money that they spend on a daily basis for us to be out there, it's just unbelievable. So
the opportunity cost is grand. I can't imagine.
But I mean, where else could we do this?
Yeah.
You know, there's no other opportunity anywhere else to do it. Plus, it's so much safer that the military is actually basically running the launch, right? And Systems Go personnel as well. So that way, the kids they're miles away from that rocket when it's being filled and when it's launching. So it's very safe for them. But you know, this year when the rocket came off the launch pad, I was jumping up on it, and I can't lie. You know, I had tears running out of my eyes. It's just like what? It's just that it's. You know, it's an experience for the kids, but for teachers, it's just singular to get to have that feeling.
It's a year's worth of emotions.
It's actually
like that.
4 years now.
Oh yeah, especially
because it goes from freshmen sophomores, juniors, seniors. So most of those kiddos have been with me now for 4 years.
So you are a coach.
Yeah, and coach, mentor, etc. You know, I don't really think of myself as a normal teacher or a traditional teacher. Well, normal is a good way to say it too. I'm not normal.
But we have too much normal.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Like we need the extraordinary. We have enough ordinary. The extraordinary is where things happen.
A little bit extra.
Yeah.
What can somebody do to support your rocketry program for the kids?
Well, we have at Alamo Heights, there's a school foundation, and they have been doing just like absolutely amazing work getting funding for the program. Remember earlier on I said that I would find the funding. Well, I could only do that for so long, and then the school board stepped in, and they give us money to help the program now, but it's not enough. It never is. It's never enough. You think about taking 30 kids and traveling to White Sands and hotel rooms and food and transportation and all that and bringing them back. I mean, that all in itself can cost as much as the rocket does. Mm-hmm. So and then our community. I mean, the Alamo Heights community has just been unbelievable. The parents and parents that kids graduated years ago, 10, 15 years ago, the kids graduated, and they still are supporting the program. So that's why I said that when I walked in there, I was like, this is the place I want to be. This is the place I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
And so prophecy came true.
Awesome.
I got to be there till then.
Well, we appreciate you coming by, and telling that story and everything. And I know that, if you do want to donate and support directly to the Rocketry program, you can always donate directly to Alamo Heights Foundation, but just tag it Rocketry because they also support other programs as well. Mm-hmm. But if you want them to support specifically the Rocketry or the volleyball program, the Rocketry program, you can donate directly to the high school and just tag it that it's for the Rocketry program, and it'll get to the right place.
Correct.
For sure. Yeah. So now that's taken care of. What's the best hamburger in San Antonio?
Oh, good Lord. At the risk of sounding boastful,
other than yours,
I was going to say mine,
and that's not boastful because I will tell you that I have the best barbecue.
Yeah,
but that's because my recipe is tailored to my own flavor profile that I really love in my family. It may not be everybody's favorite. Right. But it is the best to me. So I will say that you probably do have the best hamburger
in my backyard. Yeah.
But if we were going to go buy one,
well, I just passed Hop Daddy on the way here, and I was like, I haven't been there for a while. That's a pretty good burger joint, So let's just go with that one.
Okay.
Hop Daddy.
Hop Daddy. What about for tacos? If you're going to go Mexican food tacos, breakfast tacos, do you have a go-to place?
Right down the road from my house is Tacos and Salsa.
Okay,
and
that's better than Taco Cabana, which is the last thing the last guy said.
Yeah, I'm not big on big,
chains.
I like
except
the
for
whole.
Hot Daddy.
Yeah, well, that's true. Sorry, when you said that. Yeah. I was thinking about that as I said it because I was trying to think of a hole in the wall place that I've had a burger in recently, and I couldn't think of anything.
We're fans of the standards like Chris Madrid's. Yeah. His go-to is Mr. Juicy, of course, which is really good.
I don't think I've had that.
Oh, you got to go.
Andrew Weissman, local celebrity chef.
Where's that at?
Hildebrand and San Pedro, the green building.
Yeah.
It used to be the Jack in the Box.
Got it.
It is where he's at now. And he's opening one on Northwest Military, kind of where Lock Hill Summit cuts across. Mm-hmm. It used to be the Whataburger, the A-frame Whataburger. Mm-hmm. He just painted it green. It's open the second one. He's great stuff and everything.
Okay.
And last and final question: any restaurant? What's your favorite restaurant local to San Antonio that you recommend to people?
Good Lord. I don't go out very often, but there's a joint out by Canyon Lake called the Screaming Goat.
I like the name of it.
Yeah, and they actually do have pygmy goats and stuff there, and they play goat bingo, which, okay, use your imagination.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun place to go to.
It's and they have live music all the time, and so, I'm a musician, so I love going there and watching the bands and stuff, but kind of a Cajun-style food there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a cool joint that we go there probably more often than any other place.
Awesome. The
Nice.
Screaming Goat.
Screaming
Check it
Goat.
out. That's a new one. It's very rare that someone says a restaurant that I've not heard of.
Yeah.
I love it. I'll have to try it out.
It's fun. It's a fun place. They get really good music in there.
My youngest, she'll love the goats.
So you said Canyon Lake. So does that mean you're retiring to Canyon Lake?
Eventually, yeah, that's
Nice.
the game plan. We're building my shop and my music room.
Nice.
What do you play?
I play the drums, and that's something most of my students don't even know that. My like your son probably doesn't even know that about me. But I put music aside when I went into teaching, and haven't really played very much since then. And when COVID hit, I needed something to keep myself sane. And Sean Hedgepath, who's a teacher at Alamo High, he's a great drummer. Well, yeah, my sisters are talking. Look at my wife, and they go, "Oh, you don't know what you did to."
You stay pretty still for a drummer. Most drummers can't stay still. They're beating on everything and can't.
25 years of teaching, I guess. Yeah. But now I've come full circle and got back to music. I was playing with an all-teacher band for a while, and now I'm with a brand new band that we're working on an album that'll be released about this time next year.
What kind of music?
It's kind of like a bluesy country thing. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the best way I could kind of explain
Kind
it.
of a Chris Stapleton, Sturgis Simpson.
Yeah, sort of. Have you heard of
Tyler
a band called Red Clay Strays?
I have heard of them.
Yeah. We kind of have kind of that kind of a
They've
sound
been popping
going on.
up on my, literally on my Instagram, Facebook. They've been doing some shows around here or something.
Yeah, they're blowing up. They're going to be actually here this Friday.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when y'all gigging?
Well, we're still working on that part of it. We actually don't even have a name yet. And so we're working on the originals. I have to lay down some drum tracks this week in the studio. And once we have enough songs, originals, and covers to start gigging, that's when we'll do it. But we're not wanting to just jump out there prematurely. We want to make sure that, we're tight. We have everything in a row. We're ready to actually walk out on stage and put on a show that people will appreciate. So we're kind of taking our time, making sure that we get everything right. And like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, we'll have to when y'all get your album released and everything, and we'll have to have y'all come back out.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk music next time.
Yeah.
All your influences and everything.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, it's really great.
Nice. Well, thanks for coming
Colin,
on.
thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me. I
We
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the next episode.